Rainier Avenue Radio.
Are you a small business owner in Seattle who was impacted by COVID-19? The Seattle Office of Economic Development is investing $8 million to connect small businesses to operating capital. The Small Business Capital Access Program will lower the cost of Washington State Small Business Flex Fund loans by paying down 25% of the loan principal. Eligible small businesses can borrow up to $150,000 with a 4% interest rate to cover expenses like payroll, rent, utilities, and supplies.
You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. I'm Granville Emerson along with my partner, Ronald Pepe Bean. And we host the show Little Line Sports right here on Rainier Avenue Radio.world, where we talk about football, basketball, local sports, national sports, Seahawks, UW, Seattle U Redhawks, Garfield Bulldogs, all that and more right here on Little Line Sports on Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
What's poppin'? This is D Money from Fresh Juice every Wednesday night, 9 to 11 p.m. on Rainier Avenue Radio. Along with my co-host, Pint Size Patron, and ID Yourself. We've reached episode 600, y'all. On April 6th, we're celebrating in-studio guest C2B, but we also want you involved as well. So email us at dbelles@live.com, dbelles@live.com. Email us with a video congratulating us on our 600 or letting us know if you want to join us live to congratulate us on the air next Wednesday, 9 to 11 p.m., April 6th. Fresh Juice number 600. If you or a family member are 55 or over and need nursing home level care, but want to keep living where you are, check out Providence Elder Place PACE. This program offers healthcare, housing, transportation, and recreational activities. There are no co-pays or deductibles, and it's covered through Medicare and Medicaid. Providence Elder Place PACE works to keep you healthy and in your home. Call 206-320-5325 or visit providence.org Elder Place. Providence.org Elder Place.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not helping bad girls set up their websites, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Yo. What up, though?
I got to talk. I got to tell what I feel. I got to talk about my life as I see it.
All right, then. It's time for you to bring it to the table.
Turn up your radio wherever you at. We about to bring it.
Street Beat.
Yeah.
With Tony B.
For the next hour, Tony B will give you a chance to tackle local, national, and international issues that affect your community.
Street Beat.
Street Beat.
Tony.
Good morning, afternoon, and welcome to this week's edition of Street Beat. It's me, your host, Tony B, and we've got a great show for you today. Now, if you are a small business or you know someone who owns a small business, look, get in touch with them and tell them they need to be listening to Street Beat on Rainier Avenue Radio right now. If you were impacted by COVID-19 and you are a small business, the Seattle Office of Economic Development is interested in investing $8 million, $150,000 of that could be yours to connect small businesses to operating capital. We're going to talk more about the Small Business Capital Access Program. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and bring the guy who can do that on right now. I'd like to welcome Ken to the program. Ken, are you there?
I'm here. Thanks for having me on. Good to be with you.
Great to have you on. Let's get started. First, let's do this. Let's find out about you, Ken, a little bit about your background, who you are. I got a bio, but it'd be much more fun to have you tell us about yourself rather than have me just read a sheet of paper. Who are you?
Sure, happy to do that. Been in Seattle since 2000. Came here for both sort of the love of the mountains and the outdoors, as well as uh, an exciting city like Seattle. At the time, it was just kind of all the growth was just starting to happen, and I think the combination of those two factors really drew me here. And been working at the city of Seattle since 2001 with the Office of Economic Development. And during that time, always trying to figure out ways to give access to small businesses with financing and technical assistance programs. And so excited that this is another thing that we can offer for recovering small businesses.
And again, Ken, if you don't mind, for folks who may not be familiar with the Seattle Office of Economic Development and the role that you play in the sphere of our city government, can you kind of go over that and talk about who Seattle Office of Economic Development is and some of the things that you do?
Sure. All of us at the Office of Economic Development are advocates for small businesses, particularly those small businesses that don't always get access to capital, don't always have access to the type of support they need to start and grow. And that challenge was, I think, underscored even more during this pandemic, where we have tried different things to make sure businesses get that type of support. So, all throughout my time at the Office of Economic Development, really focusing on those much smaller businesses, tending to be sort of kind of the mom and pop type of businesses, storefront businesses, really focusing on those types. So, so excited to talk about this program.
So when you say focusing on, be a little more specific about what that means.
That means creating.
Focusing on. Okay. Go ahead.
That means creating programs with an eye towards having these specifically for smaller businesses. We know larger businesses have access to bank financing, bank loans. They don't require a lot of the same technical assistance support. So we really try to design programs just for the smaller businesses in mind. And that's what I mean by focusing.
Okay, Ken, if you don't know, if you've never listened to Street Beat before, we have open, honest, frank discussion. It sounds like a great program. We want to get information to people. A lot of times these things come with barriers. And if they don't, there have been programs that have barriers that people feel, well, that's not for me. So you're saying that this is a program, you're looking at small businesses that have been impacted by COVID. And for some small businesses, that could have been devastating. So the types of information that you're looking for, they may be saying, well, wow, the COVID shook me up, is this something that I'm really going to be eligible for, or is this just going to be another tedious experiment, for me in trying to access some funds to help me with this? I'm going to start off by saying this really sounds exciting. $8 million potentially available, potentially up to $150,000. Talking about the Capital Access Program. Tell me about this program. We'll start there. The Capital Access Program. What is it? How did it get started? Where'd the money come from? We know it's for small businesses that were impacted by COVID. Give me some of the details.
Yeah. So the background on this is, back when the pandemic started, we were mobilizing to help businesses with emergency short-term grants. And for a time, I think those were helpful to small businesses that we weren't sure sort of how long the pandemic was going to last. And so we started out with that, but then as things stretched on, we quickly realized this is going to be a long recovery period. So we have to come up with the next step of financing beyond the short-term grants, and that's where the Capital Access Program came in. The idea was to provide businesses with access to more money and to cover a longer-term recovery period, and that's how we designed this, to work with an existing loan fund called the Flex Fund Loan. And it is a product that involves community lenders providing loans up to $150,000 per business. And the terms are interest only for the first year and 4% interest. So without the city involved, that's a pretty good product, but we wanted to make that even more accessible for small businesses. How do we give businesses a longer runway that they need to recover? And that's how we came in with the Capital Access Program, which we're using to pay down those loans by 25%. So when you look at businesses that get both the Flex Fund loan as well as the city support, they'll have interest only for the first year, and then they'll have 25% of the loan paid off for them. And that will help them get longer term financing, lower cost money, and give them more time for them to get their feet underneath themselves, start to recover, start to get back onto a growth pattern, and hopefully give them what they need to kind of make their way back from the pandemic.
You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio. This is Street Beat. I'm your host, Tony B. My guest is Ken Takahashi from Seattle's Office of Economic Development. Ken, did I get your title? I don't think I got your title. What's probably that big long job title that the city dues on everybody? What's your job title?
My title is Director of Commercial Affordability.
Okay. I wanted to know the title. I wonder if you have this information. If folks have a small business, COVID shut a lot of people down, shut off a lot of communication. We're kind of opening back up, but people still probably feel potentially alone or even siloed. Do you have overall information? Have you had, or has your office had time to aggregate information about the health of our small businesses? Obviously, putting a program together like this means that assistance is still needed, and I'm sure that our small businesses would probably validate that. But have you been able to aggregate any information about how our small businesses have been doing in general, and maybe even geographically?
Well, we've learned a lot just from the short-term grant program that I talked about before. We collected data to really confirm what we had been hearing anecdotally. So we were getting data showing that businesses really only had enough cash for less than a 30-day period. So they needed more than just that one-time grant. We were seeing how there's rent debt that a lot of businesses are getting during the pandemic, and they need to figure out a way to pay back that rent debt to be able to stay in their place of business. All sorts of different stresses that we were noticing through collecting that data, seeing sort of what their losses were, the different kinds of stresses on their business, on their operations. And so that's why we wanted to provide this program, which provides longer term financing, and also to pair that with technical assistance. So we will have consultants to talk to them about, is there a way for them to adjust their operations to respond better to the pandemic? Maybe they need some help with their financials to be able to show folks how they're projecting out, how they're going to make their way back. Different ways for them to feel more confident in being able to get out of this pandemic in a good place and to get back to growth. So it's both technical assistance as well as this capital access program to support them, and also to make it easier for them to apply, especially those where English is not their first language. We have language support, and we have one-on-one support that we can offer people to help them pull together the information that's needed to show that they can take on a loan.
Again, this is Tony B. My guest is Ken Takahashi. Ken, I know that in particular for us at Rainier Avenue Radio, our small businesses in South Seattle, a lot of the times are family-owned businesses and they're ethnic or cultural businesses as well. That this is it. This is their survival. They may have, again, language barriers that don't make it easy to get a job, if you want to call it that. And then folks have invested, their lives into their small businesses because of some of the things that take place that are systemic around getting hired, because of the barriers, because of the perceptions. So those are some things that I'm aware of for South Seattle. Why small businesses? Why is this effort by the city to say, hey, we need to make sure that small businesses are sustained? What's that about? Why is that important?
Small businesses drive our economy. Without small businesses, our economy is not going to come back. Seattle is not the same unless we have healthy small businesses, and particularly the sort of the storefront mom and pop type shops. We need to be able to support them because it all drives our economy. It starts with the small businesses. That's why we look at this as so important to make sure they have what they need, both money as well as support.
So this could potentially be a wide swath of information. What is a small business? How do you define it? Do you define it by size of the business, by number of employees, by income? What's a small business?
Yeah, there are a couple of factors we look at. One is employee size, under 50 employees, revenue, annual revenue, no more than 5 million annual revenue. And then we're also, for this program, it's concentrating on those eligible businesses with no more than 2 locations. So it's trying to be both flexible, but is also to make sure that the support's going to the businesses that need it the most. And when we pair that with the kind of outreach we're doing to make sure we're reaching immigrant communities, making sure that people where English is not their first language, that we're providing that language support, we're making it easier for them to apply. All of that, we're wanting to make sure that this is accessible to the kinds of small businesses that need the support.
And again, big question for you, Ken, here. And so if you could answer this question for me very plainly, very, very plainly, who's eligible? Who is eligible? And maybe you got to apply to find out. I don't know. But as we're sitting here having this conversation and people are tuning in and looking and saying, okay, you said there'd be money available to access for small businesses. What does that mean? Who's eligible for this funding?
Yeah, it's those 3 factors that I mentioned. If you meet the size criteria, you're a for-profit business in Seattle, you have no more than 50 employees, you have no more than 5 million revenue, no more than 2 locations. If you meet at least 2 of those 3, you're eligible to apply, and we encourage you to apply. Because then we can pair you up with someone to support you to fill out the application, to see if you qualify for a loan. And if you don't qualify for a loan, we're still going to work with you to see what other resources we can get for you.
Okay, and I say that because some people may be thinking, well, I'm a small business, but I don't have a brick and mortar building. And, that's affected me previously as well. So if you don't have a brick and mortar building, and what we know through the pandemic was that, again, a lot of people lost the ability to pay that rent. And even though we had the moratorium and everything, some people still fell through the cracks. The other thing is that people who lost jobs started their own businesses. And we know that a lot of businesses began working from home as well. If you don't have a brick and mortar building, is that some sort of impediment to, I know the top side, if you don't have 50 employees, or you don't have, but there are people with small businesses, again, who go to pop-ups, who again are just trying to make it and survive however they can.
Sure, they are eligible. As long as they're based in Seattle, and if you have a home-based business and you're in Seattle and you meet that size criteria that I talked about, then that business is eligible for this program.
Okay, and if you can answer the question again, Ken, you know how we get down here, how I get down, just open, honest, a conversation. Who will be making the decisions regarding who gets access to these loans? Okay, it's not a bank. We know that for banks, there can be things that can factor into it. Is there a body of folks? Is there a group of folks? Is it a group of peers? Who's going to make these decisions about who can access these loans and who gets the loans?
Yeah, we're working with community lenders. They're called community development financial institutions. And a lot of small businesses are familiar with these community lenders. Some of them include Business Impact Northwest, Rainier Valley Community Development Fund, Craft 3. Those are examples of some of community lenders that are active in Seattle that are participating in this program. So these lenders are, they have a mission of serving smaller businesses that don't have access to bank financing, and they have a mission of being more flexible and being willing to work with smaller businesses. So that's why we're collaborating with those types of lenders to see if they qualify for the loan.
Okay, this was a question that was asked of me about this program, and I didn't know the answer to it. And sometimes one of the barriers to folks participating in these things are the jargon. And maybe for some folks this isn't jargon, but it was explain how paying down 25% of the loan principal works. To me, that sounds kind of like real estate jargon talk. What does that mean? Can you make that make sense to me? Is the question relevant? Is it being asked? Well, I put it this way: if someone asked a question, it's relevant. Can you
Sure.
put that in context to make that make sense?
Yeah, I think a simple way to explain is, like, let's say the business has $100,000 loan, then the city participation will lower that loan to $75,000. So our funding will pay $25,000 of that loan off. So that's $25,000 the business does not have to repay, lowers the amount of their loan, lowers their loan payments, and makes it easier and quicker for them to repay that loan.
That seems to be just what it says. So I'm going to read this again. You pay down 25% of the loan principal. What I heard you say was if you currently have a loan out, 25%. Does this loan have to be specifically related to having endured some sort of loss during COVID on your business? If you can clarify that a little bit.
Well, this 30-day application period that's happening now, this is when businesses can apply for that new loan. That the community lenders will then evaluate that and see if they qualify, and then the city piece would come in to pay that down by 25%. And so, but we're looking for businesses to be able to say they had COVID impact, they were impacted by COVID and need the funding. That is something they will need to be able to say.
Is there a geographical component to this? And what I mean by that, if there are areas that were hit hardest by the pandemic, and again, you may have aggregated information that shows you certain communities were impacted more than other communities. And if that's the case, are you going to say, well, hey, these communities were really impacted more. Let's give them an opportunity to be at the front of the line, or We'll take this into consideration when we're deciding who gets the loans. Again, some of those things may factor into folks saying, oh, okay, this is a citywide effort. The people who survive the best, the people who have funding, the people who have the resources to take the time to do this are going to be the people who get the money. And so, are you taking into consideration geography, communities in the city that were more impacted?
We're not doing any set-asides for geographic areas, but we are doing a lot more outreach for those communities and doing things like providing language support, one-on-one support in their language. We're advertising in ethnic media. We're working closely with neighborhood partners in those hardest hit neighborhoods. So we're taking the extra step in outreach to make sure people know about this and have a fair opportunity to apply, and use the 30-day period to give everyone an equal shot in those neighborhoods to apply, so that even though a lot of those folks don't always hear about these opportunities up front, but maybe they might hear about it at the tail end, they're still going to have the same opportunity as a business that applied on day one. So we're trying to keep this open as long as possible and to be accessible as much as we can, particularly to those hardest hit neighborhoods.
Okay, and you did say that you're utilizing ethnic media. My next question has to deal with, again, access to this information. Are you taking into consideration ethnic groups, racial groups? You mentioned that there's no set-asides, no priorities. Unfortunately, in real life, as we know with the pandemic, there are groups that are impacted more, and fairness doesn't just necessarily factor that in. Well, your community is getting hard. The virus just said, I don't care. Are you taking into consideration someone who owns an ethnic, someone of racial? Is that factoring in, or are you in the same place? Well, we can't specifically say, for whatever reasons, that if you're an immigrant business or a Black-owned business, that we can give you any type of favor. And again, Ken, you know the deal. Just asking questions.
Sure. The way the law is set up, it's tough for us to be able to do set-asides like that. But we certainly, as I said, with outreach, we're doing everything we can to make sure people have a fair opportunity to apply, and it's as accessible as possible for them to apply.
And for people who are listening right now or thinking, okay, this sounds good, what would you say to them so that they would get their best possible shot at accessing these funds? How could they be best prepared for this process, Ken?
Sure. I would say there are a few days left in the application period. It expires on April 8th at 5 p.m. I would encourage anyone who is eligible, any business that's eligible to apply. And if they can take the time to do that as soon as they can, I would really encourage them to do that. It only takes a few minutes to complete the application. It'll give them even more time to work with a lender to get some technical support to pull together their information. And like I said, there's going to be support for them to get some help if they need some help to gather the financial information, to provide the information that the lenders need. We're going to have support for you. So trying to make that as accessible as possible so it's not a barrier for them to apply. Can't just stress enough to please, if you're eligible, apply, and we will help you not only in completing the application, but also to let you know about other resources out there.
Give me some numbers, Ken, if you have them, or email addresses or websites for people who are going, I want to know more. I want to find out more. I have some questions. I want to apply even. That type of info. Where can folks go?
Sure. They can go to our website at the city's Office of Economic Development. If they go online and they sort of Google Capital Access Program, there's a page that has FAQs, explains how the financing works. There's a link to the application, and there's also contact information where they can reach us at our office or talk directly to a lender for any questions that they have about the program. So we're ready. We're here to help you, and there's plenty of information for us to provide you.
Listening to Street Beat, we're trying to connect your small business to operating capital. My guest is Ken Takahashi from the Office of Economic Development. Ken, I'm going to give you the floor here for final words. Thanks for coming by and sharing this information. But instead of me firing questions off at you, I'm going to give you about a minute here to say whatever you want to say to those who are listening right now from your perspective about what's taking place.
Yeah, we want to hear from you. So we're always continuing to create new programs. So, please check out the Capital Access Program. Reach out to us. Let us know how we can help you. We can connect you to not only this program for financing, we can connect you to other resources that we have in the works, whether it's sort of technology access programs to help you get online, to use social media tools, to other financial health programs where you can, get better financial projections, get some advice on some credit issues that you're dealing with, legal education as you're getting out of the moratorium. What are your options on addressing those challenges? If you're building new location facilities, we have some assistance that we can provide you with consultants, as well as a tenant improvement fund that's we're going to launch coming up in the next month or so. So please check us out at the Office of Economic Development. There's a link to our newsletter where you can get on top of all the new kind of information and program launches that we're bringing out, and let us know how we can help you, and we're happy to work with you.
Hopefully, we've been able to connect you with opportunities during this special edition of Street Beat to connect you as a small business with some operating capital. Let us know how this works out for you. Ken, thank you for being here. And hopefully this helps some of our small businesses not only stay alive, but also thrive and grow. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for the chance to talk with you. Really appreciate it.
You're listening to Street Beat with me, your host, Tony B. A little later on tonight at 5:30. Stay tuned in. We're going to have a special broadcast, the 54th remembrance of the assassination of Dr. King. It's also an award ceremony. The Living Legacy Award goes to Chris Bennett. The Education Advocate Award goes to Dr. Brent Jones. Public Servant Award goes to Christian Harris Talley, and Unique Workers going to Larry Brown. Community Leadership going to an organization. That's at 5:30 to 6:30 today. Special programming coming up. It is the 54th remembrance of the assassination of Dr. King today. That's it. That's all the time that I have. That's going to do it for the kid. It's me, Tony B., your host of Street Beat, saying, remember, whether you believe you can or whether you believe you can't, you are probably right. I'm out. Peace.